And it looks like we're good.
We're good.
Good morning. My name is Loretta Gomez, and I am a student at Western Washington University, and I am doing a project on homelessness and poverty. And I thought, who else would be better on this subject than Richard LeMieux, who is a local man here in the Bremerton area who has actually written a book on his experience with it. So welcome and thank you for doing this interview for me, Richard.
Thank you for being here and for inviting me, actually. I always tell students, I speak at a lot of high schools, universities, and I always tell students the same thing, is that they are my most important audience, because you are the guys who are going to change the world. And that isn't a challenge, that's a positive statement that I know you're going to, because my generation put in place a lot of old stereotypes that are still there, that homeless people are just drunks and alcoholics, they're worthless, they don't want to work, they don't want to help themselves, and those stereotypes are still with us. You know, when I was a young man and going to Ohio State University, I remember distinctly if I wasn't a person that would challenge statements. So if someone called someone the N-word, I would try and get along and say, okay, yeah, that's okay, and I'll try to change the subject. I didn't want to stand up and say, don't say that word, it's not fair. Or if I saw someone who, quote, called a woman the W word, I would try and get along and try and change the subject. But in today's society, if I hear someone say, homeless people are all lazy, worthless, can't be helped, I will stand up and say, that is not the truth. So I hope that answers a little bit of where I'm coming from today. Loretta.
Okay. Well, can you tell us your perspective of who are the homeless?
Well, I was homeless for 2 years living in my van, and then I lived in the basement of a Methodist church for 9 months when they let me stay there. I lived with my little dog Willow, who is on the front cover of this book, Breakfast at Sally's, which is the book that Loretta talked about, that I wrote while I was homeless. And I learned a lot about homeless people, because I was one. I learned that there's no difference between a homeless person and a person that has a home, except the fact that that homeless person doesn't have a place to lay their head at night, a place to wash their clothes, a place to get cleaned up, take a shower, a place to go to work, a place to do the necessities of the day, to organize themselves, and have a, if you want to call it a successful life, whatever that is, for some, it depends on matter of perspective.
Exactly.
But yes, and the stress of living on the street puts people in harm's way, whether it's a young teenage girl, which our teenagers are the fastest growing population of homeless people in the United States, or a 80-year-old grandmother, and there are plenty of those now who have lost their homes because their houses are underwater, or it's a whole family who lost their job. The husband lost the job, the stress of life was too much, and they couldn't pay their bills, and eventually, if you will, fractured, failed, and now they're living in, they live maybe with their sister or their cousin for a while, or their mother, something happened there, and now they're living in their car, and they're coming to places like the Salvation Army or the local mission or the local church, just trying to survive each day, to get out of the cold, or as you can tell by looking at my shirt today, this is summer, so to get out of the heat, have food, get cleaned up, and they're also looking for hope. So to answer your questions, everyone can become homeless. There's not a person that I believe, including me, and of all the people I've known in my life, up until the day I became homeless when I was 58 years old, would be on the streets, living in my van, looking for food and plates full of hope each day. So there's the homeless. They're just the same as anyone else, if you will. People. They're just people.
So to reiterate, what you're saying is, one of the biggest misconceptions I think that people have is that all homeless people are addicted to some form of alcohol or drugs or gambling or something, and that's just simply not true.
It is one of the prejudices that came with, if you will, our society in particular. As you know, there are homeless people that live in Africa on the desert, but that's a different type of life
Right.
and culture altogether. In our country, the prejudice began when there was a lot of men who came back from World War I and World War II,
Right.
especially who lived in the cities. They came back, if you will, using the F word, all messed up. That's what they'll tell you, because they killed people and they couldn't fit
Right.
back into society. Some of those men lived on the streets of Chicago, New York. But during this time period, we still have, if you will, vets coming back from now
We do.
Iraq.
We
There are
do.
vets from Vietnam. But, yes, yes, and they need help. I always tell this, and, people say to me, well, how can I help somebody, Richard? Well, what can I do to help the homeless? And I say, well, it depends on your amount of help you want. Do you just want to write a check? Do you want to become involved with a teenager's life that's homeless? Do you want to, the hardest person for you to help, the one that needs the most help, is indeed the person that is addicted to drugs or alcohol, who's walking around the streets of a major city in particular, but also in Bremerton, Paulsbo. Someone who's addicted because they are anesthetizing themselves from the life of misery. And that's why you do find people that indeed are addicted. It's a small percentage of the homeless people, but they are the ones that get the most attention. People say, well, look at the homeless drunk. Well, you can go down if you want to go down to the Salvation Army or go to the local mission or some of the local churches, you'll find out that, yes, you do have this homeless person that's addicted to alcohol, but the vast majority of the people within the mile radius that are homeless are indeed people that are not addicted that way. I wasn't. I lived close to 3 years on the streets. And if it wasn't for the grace and help of other people, I wouldn't have made it. I wouldn't be speaking. There would be no book, Breakfast That's Ours, not only in American, in English, but also in Korean.
Oh, I didn't know
Right,
that.
and there's a Korean edition of Breakfast That's Ours. They're working on in fact, I just met with another screenplay writer today, this morning, before I came to talk to you about a movie. None of that would have happened. And most importantly, there are now 4 missions named after my dog Willow, right there in the country. There's one in Dunkirk, New York, called the Willow Mission. There's another one in Vero Beach, Florida, called Willow's Ark. Closer nearby Kent is Willow's Place. So those are the things that are happening, and those happened not because I was just a great writer with prose ready to produce a book about homeless people and what I saw while I was homeless, but because people were willing to help me get off the street, to have a place to, and that took a long time. There was no instant cure. There was no magic wand.
Right.
There was no potion that could be given to me or to anyone else out there that could quickly solve all the problems that go along with someone being homeless. Unless let's just say someone comes into the Salvation Army and says, "Gosh, we lost our job, we lost our home, we lost everything. We're living in our car. Can you help us?" Unless you can say, "Yes, we have a 3-bedroom home available for you this afternoon. You can get a job at Olympic College or at the shipyard. We got that set up for you. Here's your kids' new clothes. Here's your kids' new car. Yes, here is the magic wand." Who's going to do that?
It doesn't work like that.
It doesn't work that
No.
way. So there is no magic wand.
For people who may want to help, and they're struggling deciding who to help, which of the homeless should I help? Should it be somebody who's addicted to drugs, somebody who's not? Would you say it mattered? Would it matter? Is there hope for people regardless of why they're homeless? Is there?
Yes, that is the way, I, if you will, went from, for those who don't know, and haven't know anything about my book at all, or me, I was a rich man. For all my life, I worked hard, from teenager on until, and I don't go all the details of that, but I had worked hard to become a man of affluence and influence. And I had a waterfront home with two big boats, three cars, what some people will call a trophy wife. I had what I call my dream. In other words, I was the captain of my ship, had my own business. I was making a lot of money, taking cruises, going around the world, walking on the Great Wall of China, going to Paris and Rome. I had all these things. And when I lost them, I went into, because my business failed. And when my business failed, I began to fail. And that means that, first of all, just losing slowly but surely everything, the cars, the boats, to pay the bills, then everything else, to the point where my wife left because she didn't want to become homeless. She went to her family in Texas. I kept on trying to keep the business going and keep on living and trying to still succeed. When it failed, I failed. Slowly but surely my identity, things were lost, but most importantly, my identity was gone. So, how would you fix me? Just going back to me, how would you fix me? See, yes, just the scenario we just talked about a minute ago, that would have been great if somehow or another I could have walked into the Salvation Army and someone said, yes,
right,
we'll call your wife, she's coming back, we got your house back, we got your car back, we got everything back.
Right.
Okay. But, so to answer your question is, whatever you can do, if it's, again, write a check, become involved in your community, become involved in whatever type of a group, a church group that feeds people, a church group that supports housing programs, or just get involved in your city. Go to your city, go to your mayor and your all your city councilmen. If you're a person of influence in your community, say, we have to make sure that these people are not sleeping on our streets. We don't want women and children. We don't want families living on our streets. We've got to fix that. That's what we've got to do. That's one thing you can do. I mean, you can adopt someone. You can adopt a child that's homeless. You can. There's so many things that can be done. I always say the same thing. For myself is that I personally fell into deep depression and wanted to take my life. And in my book, Breakfast at Sally's, it is detailed in the first chapter of the book. Now, it's not easy to tell someone your story of life, how you wanted to take your life, and you came very, very close. Most people would like to keep that a little bit secret.
Right.
And most people would want to tell a story of how they lived on the street and how their family, even though wonderful daughter and sons, how they could not help the man that was their father. But slowly but surely, I found angels all the way along the line that had $5. Homeless angels had $5 to keep me going. Money that they begged from along the highway, holding up a sign. People say, I hate those people holding up those signs. Well,
right.
Hey, and I've heard that, well, they're making, there's one lady, she's making $30,000 a day just holding up a sign.
Yeah.
And so, if you want to help, find your spot, and you can find it just like you would if you did anything you really cared about.
Right.
If you really cared about it, you can find that. If you care about flowers, you get knowledge about flowers. You don't take the violets and just put water in them every day because they're going to die. You've got knowledge. So find out what you can do, and exactly what level you want to be. We're not expecting every human being to be like Sister Teresa, or
Right.
someone who holds up the head of a person with malaria and wipes their brow, even though they have no malaria shot. And that's what some people have done to make the world better. I don't expect that. What we do expect is that if you do something, the thing I can guarantee you is that you'll feel great. You will feel great. No matter, you will do something to help a homeless man or woman or child, an 80-year-old grandmother who's living in the parking lot of the church with their dog, which is done right now today. They're there.
Yes.
You know, if you can find a way to help that person, whatever it is, you will make a difference, and you'll know it,
Yeah.
and you'll just say, I gotta do this more. It's like I gotta do it more. I gotta do it. I want that feeling. It's like a high. It's like a high.
Well, it sounds like you're describing connecting to another human being with what
Right.
you're saying. It's a human connection that, you know, we all need and we all strive for.
We do. That's what we're looking for. You know?
Another question, and let me, on the perspective of a homeless person, what do you think are some of the biggest barriers that keep homeless people from receiving the help that they need? What would you say? I mean, you've been there,
Right.
you know, and you've heard people, and what is it that they don't believe in? What is it the barriers that's the hardest for them to cross to get the help that they need? How can...
Right. Well, first of all, there's, you know, again, I hate to come back to me in particular, but I
That's
know
okay.
this is a truth. The first thing that happens to you, whether you're successful or born into homelessness, if you will, is that, quite frankly, you're kind of like embarrassed by it. You're ashamed. In fact, in many cases, you know, you don't want contact with people, you know, because what is you know, what do you talk to somebody? You meet somebody for the first time and say, "Oh, Richard, what do you do?" And I say, "Well, I'm homeless. I'm a homeless man." You know. No, there's the psychological barriers that, first of all, for someone who has just become homeless, is I don't want to tell anybody. I don't want to be around people. Anyone who knows anything about depression, especially clinical depression, you get sort of frozen in time. It's like I lost everything. I lost my job. I can't complete a task. All I want to do is sit in a chair with my head in my hands, and I don't want to. I can't do it. And that's a beginning of going down a very dark path.
Right.
That it's hard to get back from. That's the reason why we have community mental institutions, we'll call them. It's because it's very difficult. You feel worthless. You feel like there's nothing to live for, and that's one. And there are also people that are born into homelessness. They're born into families where their girls are molested by their father. They're thrown out at age 10 or 12 years old. There are all kinds of places that put people there, in which, you know, sometimes sometimes those people become just totally reliant on the fact that I need this, I need that, and they never become self-reliant, and because of that, they never help anybody else themselves. You know, they're never, you know, it's always like from age 14 to 15 or 16, if they're at the church mission having lunch until they're 30 and 35 and 40. And then, of course, there are people, you know, that have mental disabilities, some small and some big, hurdles that are hard to get over, and many times when people see people like that in public, maybe they're out on the street corner yelling, like that, and the people don't say, "Oh, well, don't stay away from me. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that."
Right.
Well, what would you rather have that person? Where would you rather have that person? Would you rather have them completely sedated with